Hello everyone, it's Dawn here from Dawn's Inspirations. I wanted to share with you a quick way of binding a mini album using a cereal box and some 12x12 pattern papers. A lot of us seasoned crafters make mini albums and we use mount board to make the covers because it's quite sturdy and quite thick. The only problem with mount board is you always have to use a craft knife because it's very thick to cut, and when you're actually laying it out to make a cover you have to space it out and leave a gap so your book will actually bend. So it can be quite fiddly, and to a newbie crafter it can be quite daunting. So I wanted to share with you a quick tip of how to make one using a cereal box. Now the cereal box I'm using today has got a spine width of 1 3/4, so that's adequate to take 3 to 4 pages in a good mini book. So, but depending on what size your spine is, you can add as many or as few pages as you wish, so the choice is entirely yours. So the first thing I've done is I've cut my box open so it's nice and flat. This is then going to be the natural spine of my book. So to start with we need to get a nice straight edge so we can start measuring. So I think for this I'm going to fold it in half and I'm going to put it through my paper trimmer. And just hope that all goes through there. So I'm just going to pop it down on here. Might have to take a couple of goes. We'll put it through the paper trimmer and see what happens. Oh, it's nearly done it. Hasn't taken quite the other piece off, so that's not a problem. So I can cut that with the scissors, then at least I know I've got a nice straight line. I'm making this album today to house pages that are going to be 6 by 6. So in order to do that, I need my album cover to be 6.5 by 6.5, just to allow a bit of make it look like a proper book cover. So now I've done that first piece. I don't need this flappy bit here on the end because this is the bit I'm going to use for my spine, so I'm going to snip that off as well out the way, and then I'm going to pop it through my trimmer again and see if we can get the other measurement cut. So I'm going to lay it across this way, and I'm needing this to measure 6.5, so I'm going to pull this out, pop that down, bring my blade back up here, give another trim along. Hasn't quite taken that again, so I just snip that piece off. At least by putting it through the paper trimmer you're getting a straight line. You're going to use your ruler and your scissors. Just make sure all your measurements are bang on straight. You can get your right angles. Now I need each one of these then to measure 6.5 because obviously that's my spine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the edge of my spine at the 6.5 measurement and then trim off this end piece. So now we've got what's going to be my book. So basically that is your book. Now I'm using a single cereal carton here today, which does give quite a sturdy cover to a mini album. Some of you may prefer it a bit stiffer. That's not a problem. What you can do is cut 2 out and stick them together, but I've used a thin one. I'll just show you here one I made the other day. This one I made using a single carton cereal box, exactly the same as this, and it makes a very sturdy mini album that is quite adequate. Not quite as heavy as the mount board, but the mount board is a lot thicker, so there again, if you're putting albums in the post, this is sturdy and does the job, but isn't as heavy as the mount board. So I've been quite pleased with the way this has come out. That's why I was going to share it with you. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to use 2 sheets of paper, and I'm going to use them so we've got one that wraps around the spine and one that doesn't. So the first measurement we're going to have is I want the paper to measure 1 inch either way from the front cover all the way around, not on this spine bit. So because this is measuring 6.5, I'm going to need my paper measuring 8.5. I don't need it to cover the spine, so the next measurement is then going to be 8.5 by 7.5. So I'm going to get my paper trimmer, going to use the dotted paper here for the front. So I need an 8.5 measurement by 7.5 measurement for the front cover. So I'm going to cut that with you now. I'm needing it 7.5. I'm going to have to twist my paper around to get it the right way. So that's my piece measuring 7.5 by 8.5, and then the piece for along the back needs to measure 8.5 again. So it's going to measure 8.5 again, and I'm going to have this one measuring by 11. And I will show you why I'm having this by 11. They seem a bit strange, but bear with me and you will find out. Right, so that's the trimming done out the way. I've also gone ahead and I've cut 2 pieces of paper measuring 6 by 6 to go inside the book to cover the front and back covers, but I'll show you where we put those later on. So this is the first piece that's measuring 8.5 by 7.5, and this is going to be the front of my book. So this is going to go on here. So I now need to score, get this around the right way, I now need to score around 3 sides, and by scoring the 3 sides this just makes it a bit easier when we come to fold our papers in. Okay, so we're going to score on 3 sides, and I'm going to score 1 inch in on 3 sides. So I'm just doing this the other end because I find it easier to work this way. So that's 1, 2 and 3, and a lot of you that know my work know I do tend to always double score. When you buy paper it has a memory of being flat, and we're going to get it to bend, and of course obviously getting it to bend sometimes the paper will crack. So I find if you just double score each side, or just score each side, it just helps the paper not to crack. So we've done the 3 sides, so we've done 2, this is the 8.5 inch side, we've got 1 down each side of that, and then 1 across the 7.5. And now I'm just going to fold that over, just to burnish those score lines, to make it easier for when we attach it. Okay, so if you can see the paper's not cracking. And then this now is going to get glued on to the front cover of our book. So it's going to go in there and we're going to glue that on. So the first thing I need to do is to apply some wet glue. I'm using my Calal all-purpose glue here. It's my glue of choice, and I find particularly as well with paper like this that's not overly thick, it's great because you don't get any warping or buckling or bubbling underneath it. So you can use any wet glue, PVA works just as well, you can use Pritt Stick as well, so your glue of choice. Personally I find wet glue is better for this type of project because you get a little bit of what I call wiggle room, which does help when you're putting this together. So I'm now lining this up inside my score lines, and then these can then fold over, so just take your time to make sure that's right where you want it. I'm now just going to flip it over and just rub it all down where the glue is, and as you can see it's not bubbling or warping, even though this paper I'm using today is not particularly thick. So spread that all down, so that is going to be the front cover of our book. So now we need to go ahead and get these pieces glued in. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to taper off my corners. So with my ruler, I'm just going to get my ruler and just do a line. Don't want to go too vigorous, but just take your ruler off the edge of where the pencil line's going to be. Okay, and then I'm going to trim that with a pair of scissors. Don't have to be quite so precious about the inside because we're putting that piece of paper on the top, if you remember. We then fold this in, which is fitting quite neatly, so we can now go ahead and glue that. So I'm using wet glue again. push those over, squidge all the glue around to make sure it covers where you want it. So that's the front cover done. As you can see, nice professional finish on the corners there. So that's beautiful. So now we'll go ahead and do the other side now. So this is the longer piece of paper. So I'm going to do the same again. We're going to measure 1 inch round on 3 sides. So that's the 2 long sides and 1 of the shorter sides. So I'm going to double score again. So 1 inch in. My paper and do a double score. That's it, was that side. The trouble with these stripes, I can't see which side I'd scored. And you can use any papers you like for this sort of type of project. And if you want to have a play and see how you get on to start with, I would always recommend using some normal copy paper from your printer just to have a play with, to make sure you get it right. And also, if you are wanting to use it on a project and you want to have a couple of practice goes, a piece of copy paper and an old cereal box doesn't really cost you anything to do. So it's quite nice to have a play with these things sometimes to make sure you've got the confidence to go ahead and do it with the actual paper you need at the time. So let's get that all smoothed down. So this then is going to go in this part of my book. But what we're going to do is we're going to glue this first bit, and then we're going to make the score lines to make our spine. Now before we actually wrap this round, this is going to come round the front, and to make this look a bit more decorative, this plain side that we haven't done anything with at the moment, I'm going to use just a decorative punch here and punch some scallops along. If you haven't got a decorative punch, don't worry. If you've got a ruler, you can use that. If you've got those like serrated scissors, you could use those. So I'm just sort of eyeballing a central point, and then I'm just going to go along with my decorative punch. So as I say, if you haven't got a decorative punch, do not worry. You know, you can use the resources that you have to hand. You know, if you've just got a pair of scissors and a ruler, you could do a zigzag. You could always leave it entirely plain. That is perfectly alright as well. That looks just as nice. You could put it plain with a piece of lace underneath. So there's lots of different ways that you can decorate these. I'm just turning it because I'm coming this side down. I have to match the pattern up, so just forgive me for a minute. But I just wanted to show you a different way to get a professional look out of your mini albums, really, for very little cost and really very little time. Let's get stuck under there. Right, last one, do one more. There we go. I'm not too worried about those end bits because they're going to be on the inside of the cover. So I'm just going to snip these off with my scissors. You can take your decorative right to the edge, but I'm not going to. So let's put that out of the way. So we're going to go ahead now and glue the first part of our book like we did with the front. So I'm just doing this square here. So this is the back of the book, so I'm just putting loads of glue on again. That's it, up to the edges. Okay, and then we're going to lay it down into the corners where we scored, if you remember. So just check your score lines and wrap it round. Bringing it round, making sure you're happy with where it is and it is square. So I'm just going to push it down this side, and then I'm going to flip it over and do the same on the back, just to spread the glue about and get right to those edges. Just apply a little bit of pressure here when you're doing this. Okay, so that's that bit. I'm not going to taper these corners just yet because I want to go ahead and score this back line. So I'm going to take my board off and I'm just going to line it up. If you haven't got a scoreboard, do not worry. You can go ahead and use a ruler and a pencil. What I would do is, if you're using a ruler and pencil, I would put your ruler up to your spine like that and then score down that way. So, but because I've got the score pal, I'm going to use that. So I'm just making a line down there because that's where I want that to be. Now I'm going to put some glue on the spine, so all over the spine, pop your glue. And we're going to bring this upwards, so you can lay it out again, press it down. So it's just doing it in stages really, but we haven't got to worry about leaving gaps like we do when we use mount boards. So that's got that score line in it, which helps the paper when we're bending it. We now need to do the same on this last one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and lay it in my score pal the same, bring it down so I can see where the line is that I'm happy. Got a bit of glue seeping out, but that does not matter at all. And obviously I'm not double scoring here, so I'm just going to go down a couple of times. And then we're going to put a little bit of glue now on this piece here. If you've got your decorative bit cut out, remember to go up to it, because this will just help make your album look more finished and more professional. So glue on that bit there. I'm going to bring my mat back in, and then we can lay that down and stick that, laying it over, press it down, and it just needs to slightly come into bend, which is happening. So we're going to go ahead now and do the same with these corners. So with your ruler, just make your two lines. And with the scissors we'll snip those off. Get those out the way, and then we can start gluing this end of the book down. So I'll just do that one first. Put some glue there, I didn't need it. Luckily with this Cal glue it rubs away. So that's that first one, and then we're going to bring this bottom one up. So wet glue again. I'm going to do the same with this other one. You can use tape runner if you wish. The only thing with tape runner or double-sided tape, once you've stuck it, you've stuck it. So you don't have that time, what I call little wiggle room time. And I do find that it does need that little bit of time. So personally, out of experience, I find the wet glue is better. I mean, this Cal glue is perfect because it sticks anything. I even stuck my kitchen worktop with it the other night because the laminate started to come up from the heat, so it sticks all manner of things. So happy with that. So that's what it looks like, and then we've just got to get the bends to happen. Now bear in mind, as we said with paper, you've got to get the memory. I'm just going to use my bone folder here and just go on these corners where we've got now a double lot of paper as well as the cardboard. So I'm just going to fold that down just to help get a bit of memory in there. And then we're going to gradually ease it. Now if you just gradually bend it, don't yank it, because if you yank it, it will split. But if you gradually ease it, it will come. Now the glue isn't obviously dry on here yet, but as you can see already, that's absolutely fine, and we've got no cracking on our paper, and this is a very thin paper, as I said to you, that I'm using here today. So now we're going to go ahead and stick our 2 sheets of paper that I've put on here just to do covers. If you're making an album with pockets and you want to put pockets like I did in this one, this album here, I actually made extra pockets to stick down rather than just doing a flat piece of paper, so you can do that as well. But today I'm just going to use these, and I'm just wondering whether to turn my paper around if I'm not going to get it to match up. Well, I might get it to match up. Let's just try around that one. I'm not quite happy. By having it as 6 by 6, it's going to come right up to that seam. So yes, that will match up. But on this side, let's have a look on this side. Because if it's not right, I'll have it round the other way, and we have stripes going the other way. It does not matter. I think I'm going to have it round that way to give a bit of contrast. So I think we'll do that on both of those. So just going to stick these down. As I say, I've measured these 6 by 6, but if you wanted to make a pocket or wanted to put another page in, it is entirely up to you. When you stick these bits, just bring it right up, move that out of the way, right up to that score line, okay, just so it's not on the score line, so your book can still bend, but it's covering that area. And then of course by coming over here, it's tidying up all your folds. And also, if we'd had loads of paper folding in, you get bulk, and I don't think that looks very good, so I prefer it this way round. So we'll go ahead and do this side now. So we'll put some glue all over this. Do the same again, slide it up to where we want it. Aim to get it in the middle, so you've got a bit of a gap around the edges. Need to put that just that way a little bit, that's it. And I'm happy with that, we can push that all down. So there we go, so that is how to make a board cover for your mini albums out of a cereal packet and a couple of sheets of pattern paper. So as you can see inside, it's nicely finished off, and on the outside no cracking in your paper, so just take your time with folding and your sealing, but it gives quite a sturdy look to an album. As you can see, this was a project I did yesterday and it's come out perfectly fine, and I'm really pleased with how the book's come out, and it stands up just as much as a mount boarded firm album. So that's my way of making a firm cover or a hardback cover for your mini albums in double quick time. So I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. I'm Dawn from Dawn's Inspirations, and thank you very much for watching. Bye bye for now.